that everybody is here this this afternoon, actually, no longer morning, even though it feels like it could be. And I know that, yeah, you're either here because you feel stressed and burnt out, or because you have team members or friends or family who feel stressed or burnt out, and you're wanting to share it with them. Or maybe you're just wanting to prevent feeling stressed and burnt out. But I think at this time of year, as I've been speaking to people, the most common thing I hear when I ask people how they're doing is just, oh, I'm exhausted. I can't wait to just put my computer away for a week or two. And so I think at this time of year, a lot of people are really feeling it. So we thought this would be a really appropriate topic. It's our last kind of formal webinar for the year. It's December next. Can you believe it? So we'll just be doing a short one on entrepreneurship that I might record up front because we are going to take a month's holiday from the 10th of November till about the 10th of December. So I think that will just be an amazing digital detox, as people call it, or just, go and not climb in a car, not do many things. So I hope that all of you have a chance to have a break too. Thank you, Chantal. Well deserved. I think everyone deserves a holiday this time. But what we're going to be speaking to about today, and I know that most of you know by this stage that I'm Jane Moores, and I'm a talent engagement expert, love anything to do with recruitment, with helping people in their careers, or with training companies to hire the right people. And I'm fortunate to be married to the most amazing man who is also a professional coach and who I studied coaching under, which was wonderful, Reinhard Moores. So I think most of you know him, but I'll let him do a little bit of an introduction anyway. So welcome, Reinhard. I'm excited to end the year with you.
Well, thanks, Jane. I appreciate it. My temptation is to look there because Jane is actually there, but I have to remember to look at the camera.
That's right.
So yes, thank you for inviting me. And yeah, it's great to talk on this topic. It's close to me and to a lot of my clients, actually.
So Reinhard, I know when people look at your LinkedIn profile, they don't necessarily think stress and burnout coach, because you've got thinking partner, professional coach, and you've got lifesaver up there. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
So as a professional coach, so I work in the coaching industry. So I either train people in coaching skills, and that's normally in a corporate environment where I train leaders to use coaching skills as a management skill or a leadership skill. I'm a trained professional coach. I studied coaching, my postgraduate master's in coaching many years ago. So I coach executives or managers in companies. And on the executive level, sometimes it's you just a thinking partner. It's not like the executive doesn't know how to run her or his company. They do. So, but they need to bounce off things, and who do they do that? And it's funny, the last one, Lifesaver, a friend of mine asked yesterday, Marcus, and he said, Reinhard, I didn't know you're a lifesaver. And I said, no, this is Jane with her cleverness this year, with all of her networks, and they came up with quirky things and how to make LinkedIn make a little bit more engagement. And I said, that's exactly it. You now ask, are you a lifesaver? And I said, well, I am, but not in the sense of like swimming into the ocean, in the sense of sort of a existential lifesaver. I think something that's very passionate about is things like stress and burnout and other stuff that people just do life and struggle with, and raising kids, all sort of relationship stuff that people are told, you don't bring this to work, you leave it at the door. But we are human. You can't leave half of human at the door and now walk into the office. Well, in 2020, the office and the house and everything was the same anyway. But so in that sense, I'm a figurative lifesaver in a sense.
Yeah, so I think it talks to your holistic approach to coaching.
Very much so.
And talks to your being a thinking partner. But love it. And I know we actually do support the Life Saving Rescue Club, because pretty much
We
each member of our
do.
family has been saved at some point from the
This is the
sea.
sea rescue,
The
life
sea
saving. Yes,
rescue.
we do. We do. We are. Otterbox are proud sponsors of National Sea Rescue Institute in South Africa.
Including myself.
Mm.
So, but why not? We're not here to talk about sea rescue. We're here to
Mm.
talk about life rescue, if you like, stress and burnout.
Yeah.
So maybe you can start off by sharing with us, why do people experience stress or burnout? What are the reasons typically that give rise to that?
Okay, I put a few slides together. Maybe it helps a little bit. So why? I think it's a complex thing, so there's no one reason. I think sometimes we want to simplify something and say, "Oh, I work too long hours," but I mean, it, it's very complex, so in the one end is sort of working too many hours. I spoke to one of our alchemy coffee shop down the road here. Jay knows it very well. And I met one of our, I called him my alchemy friends, so we drink coffee together. Dr. Martin Muller, and he's in occupational health. And yesterday I said, "Martin, give me some tips. I'm doing this talk tomorrow." And he was very helpful. And he talked about this one concept called karoshi, which I've never heard of, and it's a Japanese term for literally death from overwork. And in Japan, as far as I understood, if the family can claim like the person died because they worked too much, they have a legal claim. It's like a medical death, like in South Africa or any country, your death, you died because of work circumstances, and so karoshi is actually quite a well-known term in Japan. But sometimes we work too much. We don't we say, "Well, we don't work 18 hours, but maybe you work 10 or 12, or and that's the thing. Where you take the boundary, and so I looked at another thing recently. I read up on the Modern Slavery Act of 2015 in Britain, and I've highlighted, so when we talk about slavery, we think about, a little shop somewhere where children are forced to work to make some, I don't know, sneakers or runners, the old little story. Let's not get into names, so that's not the point. But if you look at what modern slavery, the definition is forced or compulsory labor, to perform forced or compulsory labor. Now, the thing is, you'll say, Reinhard, but nobody forces you to work 12 hours in IT or wherever you work, sales or, medicine, doesn't matter. And then there's a certain level, yes, you're not forced. There's no somebody with a whip in the old days, but it's the unspoken thing. It's the unspoken, what, if you work for company XYZ on this type of level, you actually work 12 hours a day. You get only paid for 8, but you work 12, and now in COVID was even longer. And, so it's those sort of things. And so, no, it's not forced labor, but it's also us. When do we say no? So yes, it's a company culture, but it's also your personality. When do you say no? And it's your circumstances, your children, your needs. So it's it'll to say the short version, Jane, it's complex.
That sounds complex. Well, I think something that I've heard talked about in many webinars recently, global conferences, is how individuals are needing to take ownership for their learning. And we talked about self-organized learning in one of our previous webinars.
Okay.
But I think in the same way, what's coming up is who's taking ownership for the mental health and well-being of the employee. And again, that has to be both. The company needs to be sure that they're not, placing undue expectations on employees. But as well, we are responsible for our own health, and all of us are different.
Mm.
If I even just think of the role that culture plays, I know we have a friend who works for a well-known global IT company.
Mm.
And when he was in South Africa, he was working an 18-hour day.
Yeah,
He's moved to Canada and now he works an 8-hour day.
for the same
The
company.
same company, same role, if not even a more responsible
Yeah,
role.
yeah.
But it's just the role, I think, as you say, it's complex. It's the company, it's the individual, it's also the culture
Mm.
of the country that you're in, and the expectations of people around you.
Mm.
So very interesting.
No, totally.
But Reinhard, what is the difference? Because we're talking about stress and burnout here.
Hmm.
So what are the signs that come up when somebody is feeling stressed in an unhealthy way or
Hmm.
feeling burnt out? How would you know?
Now, there is the medical definitions, so I don't want to go into that because I am not a doctor, phone Martin, or Google it, Harvard Medical Center. I actually put some resources at the bottom of some nice articles, and so you can read up about it. But the short version, and I would say it this way: stress you know about. So you what you're saying, "Phew, I'm overworked. Just there's so much I have to put attention to." But you say, and this is very important. But I can do this.
Hmm.
So I'm stretched, but you tell yourself, I can still handle this.
Hmm.
And when it's burnout, hopelessness steps in. So where you did say yourself, yes, I'm stretched, I'm stressed, but your brain says, if I just do this, I can do that little thing. I can say yes to that too. Or my kids need to go to university or school, so I better do this. And at burnout, you go, I can't anymore.
Hmm.
There's no hope. I don't want to go to work. So, and when is the flip? And it's not a switch. It's like Martin said to me yesterday. It's not like as doctors we can go, oh great, that's the switch. It's a thin line, or a gray line.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that sounds like a pretty scary place to be because I think we naturally push ourselves harder and
Mm-hmm.
harder. And I was on a call with someone the other day and we were preparing for something. And somebody said, I am just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm tired of meeting up with friends and family and people who know me
Mm-hmm.
and them saying, you look terrible. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
And she was feeling that way. She was feeling like I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but she's not letting up her pace.
Yep.
She's keeping on pushing. She kind of is still driven, as you say, by her kids
Yep.
and needing to provide for them. And so there's still that ability to push harder, push longer.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we know when to say no? Like when to say, okay, I
Okay.
can push harder, but actually I need to say no.
So maybe let's look at so the slide.
Okay.
So I think what you need to do is obviously you want to catch stress.
Yeah.
Burnout is it's already too far.
Yeah.
That's the heart attack. You want to prevent the heart attack. So
Yeah.
we want to focus. So what's the signs that you're gonna go into a heart attack? So we're looking actually we want to look first for the stress things.
Okay.
And the telltale signs, this is what the expert tells us, what's the symptoms. Now this is of burnout, but before burnout stress happens.
Mm.
So let's just go one back. And loss of energy, anxiety, so stuff like you're edgy, you're constantly tired, and so yeah, it's, I suppose being on edge, being tired.
But Reinhard, are these signs of positive and negative stress? Because I know people talk about positive stress and negative stress.
Yeah, but Jane, that again, that's almost like it's a sort of a catch 22.
Yeah.
So we need to work. Funny enough, if we don't work, and as Martin highlighted this too, what they got in studies, when you get to burnout, people actually get booked off, right?
Mm.
But they found that if people are booked off too long, let's say you booked off 6 months or a year, your chances of ever wanting to come back to work is also psychologically very difficult.
Mm.
And so we need a bit about healthy stress. Your work needs to be stimulating and it can't be boring, because that actually creates stress as well. So you want to have good work and there needs to be a good pace to it.
Mm.
So that's good stress. Bad stress is you don't have the resources or capacity to handle the workload that's coming in. That's
Mm.
bad stress.
So now there's a lot of talk about stress at the moment.
Mhm,
And some people are saying, well, if you don't have the resources or capacity to handle the stress, the
mhm.
problem is you. You need to build your resilience so that you can handle the stress.
I must say I disagree, and
Okay.
I think
Do you
it's
think it's completely wrong,
no, no,
always
no, no,
wrong,
no, no, no,
sometimes?
no, no. It's not completely
Yeah.
wrong, but to say it is then you, I would say that is actually completely wrong. To say and it could also be you, to
Okay.
me, is probably a better statement, because
Okay.
let's be honest. So, I know companies. I coach in these companies all around the world, and I mean, every company. Some companies, departments are better or worse. I mean, and times are different. Times are sometimes tough. It's no fault. I mean, no company plans. I don't know companies who plan a mean culture.
No.
It's not like people don't sit around a table and say, oh, let's make the company culture right, really put people under stress. I've never read or heard about anything like that. Everybody wants people to want to work at a good pace that they can cope.
Mm.
So, but I think companies must be aware of their culture. They
Mm.
must be aware of that. So they are partly responsible.
Mm.
So sometimes people say, oh, yeah, but we have a wellness department. Now, let's just be honest. Some wellness departments are on the bottom seller who is a medical, sister who's brilliant. But now, there's almost like a shame element sometimes. No, I know it's a personal thing. It doesn't have to be a shame element. But you now see wellness. Why would you see wellness? What's wrong with you? I mean,
Mm.
not everybody is the same. So I think companies are responsible. But Jane, you're also right. The people who did say that is also right. It's also you to build resilience.
Mm. Mm.
But it's not just building resilience to handle it, it's
Mm.
also building the resilience to say, no, no,
Mm.
no, no, that's too much for me.
Mm. Mm. So, just as the reasons for stress and burnout are complex,
Hmm.
the solution might also be coming from different directions. It's not just the individual building resilience, it's not just the company, it's
Hmm.
all of these things.
Exactly.
But Reinhard, you mentioned shame in there, and I don't hear that talked about a lot when it comes to stress and burnout. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, shame is the word in itself, if you ask somebody, are you ashamed? Sure, that's quite a difficult thing to say, yes, I am.
Mm.
So uh, people do feel shame. They feel like it's a shame that I can't cope. But
Mm.
that's an internal conversation some people have, and maybe more than some, maybe a lot of people have that. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, very well documented sad story. And it was a aircraft accident where a pilot dumped the plane over the French-German border, and it was a suicide.
Mm.
And what happened out of that case is, at that stage, I think it was a worldwide thing. If you're on medication for a stress-related or depression-related condition, you can't fly. Okay, but if you don't fly, you don't make money, right? Um, and so it became a big thing. So yeah, you don't want people to be too depressed. If people are too depressed, they shouldn't fly. But now people are depressed, and they feel it. But as soon as they see the psychiatrist or the psychologist, now they can't fly anymore. So
You mean the pilot?
The pilot,
Yeah.
the pilot. So what does the pilot do? He or she don't. They don't. They just build it up. They build it up. They're too scared or they're too ashamed.
Or scared of,
Or
not
scared
having
losing
work.
their job or ashamed or whatever. And this is obviously a worst case scenario. Hundreds of people died in this incident.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, as far as I understand, the air industry worldwide reviewed that whole process, and rightly so. But even in our normal companies where nobody flies in a plane,
Yeah, I think even when people speak about different stress-related conditions or depression or anxiety, it's sometimes talked about in an environment, and I see it in my workshops, where people will joke about it.
Yep.
And they'll say, make sure you don't hire someone who's depressed if we're doing an interviewing workshop. And then I sometimes think, there could be somebody sitting right next to you in this room who battles with depression and is maybe handling it well and taking medication. They're being responsible about it so that they are functional.
Totally.
But it does reinforce that element of shame and not speaking about those stress-related conditions. So I think we have to be very sensitive about how we speak about these things.
You're so right, Jan.
So I think Kaz has made a comment there saying depression is such a debilitating illness and so real in the workplace. You're absolutely right, Kaz.
Very much so.
So Reinhard, how do you, people, whichever end of the scale we're on, whether, stress, burnout, whether we're prone to anxiety, prone to depression, I don't think anybody enjoys feeling negative stress.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to get to the point of burnout where you just, as you say, it's hopeless.
Okay.
How can you prevent negative stress and its impact?
Okay, so Jan, I just skipped through all these slides, but it probably talks a little bit about what we spoke about.
Okay.
That's just for people if they want to look at that.
We can share the slides afterwards if people want.
If they want to. But let's talk about it. The nice thing is, I wrote this 8 R's down. I said, first you need to recognize. You want to preferably recognize stress, but if it is burnout, maybe we should just go back to it. Maybe you're here already, right? So what is the symptoms of burnout? Lower immunity, lack of sleep. Maybe you're beyond stress. You're really now here. So let's spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes quickly here. And you're feeling tired most of the time, not all the time. So this is going from stress to burnout. This is almost all the time, every night, Emotional signs or symptoms of burnout, self-doubt, just like, sheesh, am I so useless? Can't I do this job? I used to be capable. Your negative outlook, life is gloomy. This is deep. This is like depression, deep depression. Classic.
But I think everyone has been feeling, I don't want to say everyone, but a lot of people have been feeling those kinds of emotions over this year.
Yes, but Jane, it's to what extent?
Okay.
I have a down day too. I mean, you live with me. So you could definitely say, hey, it wasn't Reinhard's best day, but it's not every day like that.
Right.
It's something happens, you have a bad day. But now we're talking bad week, bad weeks, bad months. So now it's not just a odd day. So that's what you definitely want to look at. And here's the telltale signs too. The behavioral signs are often people isolating themselves, withdrawing, overeating. They come with obviously depression as well, right? Drugs, alcohol, self-medication, what we call it, right? Skipping work, always late, that sort of things, And you see this more and more, and a lot of this classical signs. Now you're really into burnout already, right?
Mm.
So what we want to say, okay, we talked about the causes, so we don't want to go here. Just one thing I want to mention. I see I wrote there, personality type A. S-
Oh,
Some
okay.
people are, look, I don't have an A-type personality.
Whew, at least one of us.
So Jane has a bit of an A-type.
I have enough for both of us.
So some people are very driven, which is a good thing, right? So if everybody was Reinhard, the world will be bankrupt, you know. So so it's not that I'm lazy, but you know, I am not the most, okay, I have to do, and so I'm easier on myself. I don't have to win, you know. I don't have to be the best. I have other problems, but that's, you know, that's so personality types also don't, you know, kind of works for and against you sometimes.
Mm, mm,
Family needs. I mean, your kids, you have to pay debts and stuff, all these things. So, and that's why I said, remember, Joan, in the beginning, it is very complex,
mm,
you know. So, yeah, so, okay. So, what can you do? First, you want to actually say recognize. Now, recognize is probably easiest if you're not really a self-reflective person. People like Jane, you said earlier, people said, oh, you look tired. Are
yeah,
you okay?
yeah.
If you start saying, no, no, but there's a little voice in your head that goes, shush, no, I'm actually, yeah, I'm tired. You know, but
Mm,
you don't, or you say that to yourself, or people are you okay, you know. So recognize it to first to
mm,
yourself, and reach out, speak to somebody. No, you don't, you know, sometimes you don't want to go to the sister downstairs at your corporation. Well, nobody know go in 2020 downstairs anywhere, but okay. But speak to a friend, speak to
mm.
somebody, just speak to somebody, you know. Speak in the mirror is okay, but try one more person, you know, than the person in the mirror.
Mirror and.
Yeah, Miranda, you know, and maybe they're not, but just the fact that you said that, that friend or colleague could then say, and you can say, you know what, I might say I'm okay, but do me a favor, just check in with me. And I think that that already helps, that somebody, they don't have to cure you. They're just a
Mm,
friend. They're checking.
yeah.
Did you go and see the doctor? Did you, you know, are you saying no more? Okay, the other thing is reframing your own mindset, you know, and that's the guilt issue. And you might need somebody to help you to do that, you know.
Mm. That's difficult because sometimes you can't see
Ah,
your own mindset. It feels normal.
yeah.
So it's hard to rewire on your own.
So maybe with a friend or a professional like a coach or a psychologist or whoever is professional that can help you
Mm,
to reframe that. Okay.
mm,
Some of it is repair. Now, if you're at such a state which you are, there's nothing left in the tank, you need to rest, you know,
mm,
and that's just the repair and the R&R, rest and relaxation, you know. So, um, and then you need, and what Jan you spoke about, building resilience. So
mm,
part of building resilience is working on yourself, you know, learning to say no and stuff like that, but also, you know, having practices, you know, just following a healthy diet sometimes works, you know. So meditation, yoga, whatever walks. You can walk the dog around the block. Now, Jane, I know if you walk my dog around the block, it's not, you know, it's stressful.
that's right.
But if yeah, you know, different things, you know, go and swim,
Mm,
whatever works for you
mm,
is to build that, because yes, there's a company part, but there's also a part, like you said, that you can do something about it.
mm.
Sleep, force yourself.
I love Kaz says a lot of corporates have a duvet day for staff to take time out. I love that.
Love it.
Helping
Great
their
company.
staff rest.
Yeah, great company. And then some of it is, Jan, reevaluate your priorities. And I said
Mm,
that because sometimes we remember old Maslow. You know, we have that Maslow hierarchy of needs. I don't know if it's
hierarchy.
hierarchy Hierarchy.
Okay, the English is your third language.
It
Okay.
is, Jane. Hierarchy of needs is, and we want to say, the top one, self-actualization and self-esteem, we want to be something. No, that's okay, but it doesn't mean that, you need to have a PhD to be something. You don't have to have a Porsche to be somebody.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay in a certain suburb to be awesome, or go to this type of university, or your children for that matter. The actual needs people have is food and water, safety, and just belonging and love and a good education, a job that pays those things. And sometimes the world out there and our friends and maybe ourselves, we tell ourselves we need more than that, to be somebody. We need these fancy stuff. But
Yeah, so the kind
don't.
of luxury side, or what other people tell you amounts to success, becomes something that you think is a need.
Exactly.
It's not actually a need. And then we can put ourselves under stress to achieve those things, but they're not.
They're not wrong in themselves. But if I need to start working 18 hours a day to send my son to some fancy university, the AA plus university versus the B plus university, and I die, what's the point?
Sure.
What's the point? Me dying of a heart attack? I was 25 when my father passed away. I would much rather have my dad be alive today than 25 years later than not. So I mean, it at what cost do you give these wonderful gifts to your family or your kids? The cost of and some people say, I sacrifice. Your kids want you. They want your love, your kindness. Your partner wants you.
Yeah, it's so easy to get into that deceptive trap.
Totally.
And I think, as you say, I mean, you talked about your dad dying. I think often when we're faced with death of a loved one or someone close, which has happened, I don't know if it's happened more during COVID, but we've been more aware of it. Those are the times that we reevaluate our priorities and say, hang on, what would I regret if I died right now? Or what do I want people to say about me at my funeral?
Exactly.
And I think those kind of questions help us to understand what we really do prioritize and work for those things.
Yeah, so Jan, then that last R is the redesign. That's what you talked about now. So yes, you repair and you rest, but the long-term solution isn't just a holiday. You need to redesign what really works for you over 80 years and what works for your family over 80 years. Yes, there's little priorities that's important right now. But if they're important right now for the past 5 years, you missed the point.
Yeah.
You might not be there. And who wants that? So...
No, good point. I think Chantal is saying that we've been so conditioned by society as to what success looks like that we forget that we can choose our own definition of what success looks like for our own point. Yeah, so I agree with Kaz. Great point, Chantal.
Now, you know what? You wouldn't know if this is a Gucci shirt or fancy label shirt or not. Well, maybe if you work for Gucci, you would, but... But I'm sure nobody on this call came on and said, sure, I want to have Reinhard's shirt or, not his shirt. Who cares? Who cares if this shirt costs, $10 or $1,000? I think it probably costs $15, but it really gives no satisfaction. It didn't make your think of me get better at all.
Yeah, it is really what we tell ourselves. Chantal's saying you're a big spender. Exactly, Chantal.
Well, Chantal, if you can get a shirt for cheaper than $15, please tell me. I'll go there.
So, Reinhard, I think, one of the aims, or the biggest aim actually, that I know you wanted us to focus on this topic today is to give hope. because the scary thing about reaching burnout stage is that's the time when we lose hope. And yeah, so help us a little bit with that. I mean, maybe somebody is on the call, or someone on the call knows someone who is feeling very stressed in a negative way, or has maybe reached burnout. What steps can we go through to be able to build hope again?
Okay, so Jan, I read this story, this parable this morning about hope and yeast and dough. So what's the function of yeast? Yeast, and now I'm not a baker. My uncle Heinrich, he was a baker. Great. Oh, he made a nice Zwiebelkuchen. So,
and he was allergic to flour.
He wasn't that interesting? But there we go. So, but yeast, you start with that little flour in the left hand, we add a little bit of yeast and it rises. And that's the beauty of yeast. It makes things better. The nice thing about the hope I want to give, because it's such a complex system, there's also hope in it. Every little bit you start doing will have an influence on the bigger thing.
Right.
Every decision you make. So if you're going to say to yourself, I used to work till 8 at night, I'm going to not work later than 6. Now, you might want to work till 5. So it's one decision. I'm going to wake up and walk, around the block for half an hour if you can. I don't know what your COVID situation is. Or I'm going to take some time out in the afternoon and just sit in the garden or the park in close to my house or my flat or where I am and just watch the bird. It's one little thing, or I'm going to do some meditation or pray, whatever it is, every little thing you do has an impact because the whole system is connected. And so start, even if it's a small thing, even if it's today saying to somebody, you know what, I was in a talk today and I realized I am bushed. I am overworked. I'm actually stressed. I might even be burned out. I don't even know it. I know you don't even work for my company, but I thought I just need to talk to somebody and say that. Even if you just do that, start just with one little thing, and that could escalate and slowly but surely. And yes, it doesn't gonna also, or there isn't a magic pill that if you take this pill tomorrow, all is going to be better. But the hope is every little bit you do will eventually make it. Just continue to make little, more little decisions, and it brings the better.
Yeah, I really like that, Reinhard, because sometimes I think when we are stressed or feeling close to burnout or even burnt out, it feels like, oh, I'm going to have to make such a big change. I don't even have the energy to make the changes I need to make. So I love that if you can just make one little change, it will work through the whole batch of dough, as we see here on the slide.
Yeah.
That those little decisions can impact our whole life, how we feel. Then we can make another little one, I think
one little decision at a time, and there you go. And it grows, and it takes a little bit of time, but you'll get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's very encouraging. I know I even said to you before this webinar, I said, sure, I just feel exhausted today. I feel like I've been doing so much. So my big little decision for the day is that between this webinar and my next meeting at 4, I'm actually going to take a break, which is really hard for me with my overly type A personality. But yeah, it's so for some of you that might sound like, yeah, that sounds pretty normal. But I need to do those things. Otherwise, I'm definitely a potential burnout candidate. I have to make the decisions that go against my grain. Awesome. So I'm glad I live with somebody who's opposite to me. I can see Kaz was like, yeah, she can relate to me, and Sanley and Yolanda were like, no, they can relate to you in terms of personality.
Jan, just one thing on the references there, The first 2 is really helpful. I think this comes from Harvard Medical University, those 2 sites. Very useful. People can definitely go there. Some of the resources I used was from those 2 sites.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow, Reinhard. And I know, I mean, you are somebody that coaches people around this. You coach people in life, and you coach people to help them find meaning and purpose in their work and in their lives, and to make those decisions and make those adjustments. So I really love the work that you do. And I see the transformational impact that you have on people's lives. And I really appreciate that you are someone who's invested in very meaningful work yourself through helping others, and that you provide that safe space for people to be able to grow. So thanks for the work that you do.
No, and people are welcome to reach out. If maybe you today, you're on the talk and you want to reach out, please, I'm very easy to find. Reinhard Moores, just look at LinkedIn. I think I'm probably one of 2 or 3 in the world. So
not like David Smith.
No, this is not John Doe. There's just like probably LinkedIn has 5 Reinhard Moores, I guess. So it's very easy to find me. Please reach out. Or maybe you have a friend or family member, let them reach out. It's at least if I can't help, I at least can say, hey, I know somebody else who can help. So yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'd love us to be able to open it up for other people to share their ideas on what they find helpful in stress and burnout. Thanks, Yolanda. Oh, thanks, Tanya. You guys are wonderful. I feel better already. Maybe I'll skip my rest. No, I'm joking.
No way.
You guys are all very special people, I must say. I'm very encouraged by all of you. But so please do unmute yourselves, put yourself on video if you feel like you can face that today. And please share your comments, and please feel free to ask any questions that you have. If you'd like to know more about the topic or direct them to anybody.